The church is the hope of the world. But too often nowadays, the light of the church is dimmed by things like culture wars, infighting, division, even abusive behavior from many who claim the name of Christ. But it isn't meant to be this way. Join us as we turn to the book of Acts and find out what happens when regular people are empowered by the Spirit of the risen Jesus. His power is still available to us today, and it's a power that can turn our world upside down.
Well, earlier this month, I had the opportunity to update my family pictures. I was so excited. We have a new member of our family. You may have heard me talk about her, my daughter. And I was so excited to get to update these pictures. And so we had family pictures taken. We put them in my office and my house. I put them everywhere. I was so excited. But for those of you who have ever taken pictures with littles, ever, in the history of taking pictures, you know that not all the pictures looked like this. That what was really going on behind the scenes looked a little bit more like this. And I'm glad that our photographer, who's a dear friend of ours, captured that moment, because this was reality that was going on. And I don't know how she worked her magic and got some good pictures, but there was applesauce everywhere. Hallie had one shoe off at one point. There's bikers zooming by behind us on a trail that Brecken almost got in front of. I mean, pure chaos. And it just goes to show that sometimes things look one way on the outside, and they can look an entirely different way on the inside. And so as Jim set us up earlier, we are in chapter 6 of Acts today, where we're gonna be looking at the inside of the church, and we're gonna see some conflict. And I think this is so fitting that we're studying this today, because if you've ever looked behind the scenes and seen things in church that made you feel unsettled, I think today's message is for you. Or if you simply just care about the local church and you care about its inside health, not just its external appearance, then today's message is for you. We're gonna see conflict. We're gonna see how they solved it, and we're gonna get to see the result, because our God is a redeemer. Let's dive in and take a look together today. So verse 1, it says this: "But as the believers were rapidly multiplying," literally rapid multiplication at this point, "there were rumblings of discontent. The Greek-speaking believers complained about the Hebrew-speaking believers, saying their widows were being discriminated against in the daily distribution of food." There was a system they had to care for the widows, to make sure they were taken care of, because they didn't have a spouse to take care of them anymore. And so this was a way they were caring for their population, but there was some conflict because there's discrimination, they're complaining, there's some discontent. And what's happening here is there are Hebrew-speaking believers and Greek-speaking believers. They're all believers, they're all Christian, they're all Jews by heritage, but there's some different in ethnicities. And the Greek-speaking believers would have been the minority, okay? Hebrew-speaking would have been the ones you think about in the Old Testament, the Israelites as a whole. The Greek-speaking believers would have been the minority, 10 to 20% of the population. So we have an example here where the majority is not quite seeing what's going on in the minority. And they had to call it out. They had to raise up this complaint. And you guys, I said this already, but this is fitting for us today, because there is conflict not only in the church we see in this book of the Bible, but there's conflict in churches today. And when I say church as I'm talking today, I'm talking about the global church, I'm talking about every local church, and I'm talking about this church. There's conflict because there's people. And there's this tension that exists when you talk about the church, and there's this tension that we cannot let go of. And the tension is this. The tension is that the church is made up of people who will get it wrong. The church is not God. It is not infallible. And right next to that tension, the church is God's plan to share his light with the world. And it is a tension. It's a tension because whenever you feel hurt by a brother or sister in Christ, it hurts differently. It's a tension because whenever you feel hurt by a pastor or a staff member, it hurts differently. And some of you have experienced real abuse in the church, and for that, I am so sorry. As a pastor, I am so sorry that that has been your experience, and I am sorry that I have probably caused hurt that I do not know about. There is tension. And right next to that tension, I do not quite understand it, right next to that tension is the reality that God has plans to share his light and his love and his hope with the whole world. And the way that he chose to do that in this day and age is through his church, is through the people of God. Imperfect people who will get it wrong. How does a perfect God want to reveal himself through imperfect people. It's humbling, it's a crazy honor, it's beautiful, and it reminds us to steward it well. And it's a sobering reality to steward it well and to have hope with what God can do, which is why I'm so excited this is in our text today. I also think it's why Jesus' prayer, his number one prayer for the church, because he prayed for the future church. His number one prayer for it was for unity. For unity, because he knew that in the middle of conflict, in the middle of division, we would have to figure out how to not dismiss people's problems, but raise them up, talk about them, solve them well. And so the church is undeterred. The church is able to move forward in its mission whenever we fight for unity in the midst of conflict. And so the problem we've seen was conflict. Let's look at how they solve it. Verse 2, it says this: "So the 12, which is the 12 disciples, the 12 apostles, called a meeting of all the believers, and they said, 'We apostles should spend our time preaching the word of God.'" That was their primary responsibility, not running a food program. "And so, brothers and sisters," so they're looking to the whole group, "select 7 men from among you who are well respected and full of the Spirit and wisdom," because there's qualifications, right? There should be integrity for those who lead. "And we will give them this responsibility, this new need that has popped up. Then we apostles can spend our time in prayer and teaching the word." And as I see this, they're bringing the issue up. They brought the issue up to leadership, which is always a healthy model, taking conflict up to leadership and not going sideways and talking about it over here, but bringing it up. And as they bring it up, I see 3 things in how they solved the conflict that I think can speak to us today. And the first is that they handled this as a family issue. They were like, this is a family issue. And there's some issues that pop up in our life, and we're like, okay, that's a school issue. I'm gonna make sure I reach out to the principal. Okay, this is a city issue. I'm gonna reach out to the governor. Okay, this is this kind of issue, a work issue or this issue. But as soon as it's my kid, it feels different. As soon as you're talking about my mama, it feels different, right? Whenever it becomes personal and it hits our family, we kind of show up differently because it's family. And I see that in how these apostles handled this problem, because earlier in the text it said they gathered everyone together. The issue was brought up to leadership, but then they gathered everyone to talk about it because this is a family issue. Jesus talked about family, and he said that anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and my sister and my mother. And what he is saying here is he's saying that we may have nothing in common. I mean, he's saying right here that God of the universe is saying that we can be a brother and a sister or a mother. We can be family with Jesus, that the divine and the human can be family. That's crazy. That we may have nothing in common. We're not related by blood. We don't have the same gender, the same ethnicity, the same life experience. We may be rooting for different people tonight for the Super Bowl, right? There's gonna be differences. But when we say yes to Jesus, we are part of one family. And that's how these disciples treated this issue as a family. Because there's this reality that church isn't a building, it's a people. That it's not where you go, it's who you are. That to ask, where do you go to church? Which is a question we ask oftentimes. It's a good question, right? Hopefully we're having a conversation, maybe inviting someone with us. But it kind of erodes at the full picture of church. Church is not somewhere you go. It's who you are. We are family. And when conflict arises in the church, what if we said this is a family issue? And we take care of each other. That's the first thing I see. Conflict is a family issue. The second thing I see is that a family mindset is that everyone does their part. Everyone does their part. And in the text earlier, we saw that the apostles were like, okay, we're supposed to preach. It wouldn't be good for us to do a food program. And I have to be honest, when I read that the first time through, I was like, does that sound a little condescending? And can I ask that question? But it's not, because their heart was just that they knew what they were gifted at and they were called to do, and they knew that other people would be called to do other parts. There's another metaphor when it comes to the church that can help us out here. If we look in 1 Corinthians 12, it talks about the church as a body. It says the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body, just like my human body has many parts, right? But I'm one body, okay? So the same thing is true with the body of Christ. Some of us are Jews, some of us are Gentiles. Some of us are slave, some of us are free. We could insert here, some of us vote one way, others of us vote for another way. Some of us root for A&M, some of us root for Texas, right? Like you have the differences within the body. But we have all been baptized into one body by one Spirit, and we share the same Spirit. What they're saying here is the one who unites us is greater than what divides us. The one who unites us, the one that we claim in this room, is greater than any of our individual differences. And it doesn't do away with our differences. We are simply united in our diversity. That is the picture of the church. That just like I have one human body, but all these individual parts are uniquely diverse, but they're united. And here's the thing. You think back to that family metaphor, they're united around that family because they know that family's not going anywhere. Like you kind of know the people that you're blood related to, they're not going anywhere. You're gonna spend the rest of your life and you're still stuck to them somehow. But how much more true is that when it comes to the body of believers? We are not just a human body, we are a supernatural body, and we're not just stuck together in this lifetime. We're gonna get to be stuck together in the next. So doing our part, seeing each other as family. And that text goes on to explain that there's different parts of the body. There's those that are seen externally, right? You can see my hands, my head, right? You can see different parts of my body. And then there's the inside parts. There's organs and blood vessels and muscles and things that I'm so thankful for, but we don't see them on a regular basis, or hopefully we shouldn't, right? So there's different parts of the body, but it's saying that all those parts, verse 18 kind of summarizes like this, but all of our bodies have many parts, but God has put each one just where he wants it. That each part of our body matters. That the parts that are seen more visibly are not more important than the parts that are on the inside. And that's true of the church, right? That the parts that happen on a platform are not more important than the parts that happen behind the scene. That my part I'm playing today is not more important than the wonderful people who came early and made coffee and made the coffee grinds smell so beautiful as I walked in. That what Warren and Chelsea and Kevin and the band did up here earlier is not more important than the people who come faithfully every Wednesday morning and cut out activities for kids so that every single child feels expected and accepted and has a craft. You see that the parts that are seen are not more important than the parts behind the scenes. We all do our part. When I think about the church as a body doing its part, I think about high def. Some of you guys were involved with high def. It happened a couple of weekends ago. We had over 400 students taken over this place for the weekend, and we had 278 people volunteering that weekend. 278 of you, some of you who were host homes. You opened your home. Maybe we need some Febreze after that if you hosted 6th grade boys. I don't know. People were drivers, right? I guess the Febreze theme could continue. I didn't think about this, but we have some drivers. We had people who were willing to speak and do breakout sessions. We had people who were willing to fill bags so that every host home had a bag of goodies. We had people who helped with signups. We had people who helped with rec, those sports people who love to do sporty things. That's not me, but we had those people, right? We had all the different kinds of people, 278. And we were able to see 400 students worship God and over 40 students say yes to Jesus. And that's what happens when the body works well together. Jesus said, I did not come to be served, but to serve. Jesus, who is fully God, did not walk on this earth saying, I am here and serve me. He came and he served. He served to the point of death. He modeled for us that we are given life, not to make it about us, not to make it about our name, not to make it about how we look and our reputation and how far up the ladder we make it. We were given this life to give it away, to serve. That is what Jesus models for us. It's a reality that we were made to be contributors, not just consumers. We were made to be contributors, not consumers. That sometimes, if we're honest, we can treat the church like it's something to consume. That if we're honest, we treat church. We go to it, we say, here's what I liked or what I didn't like about the pastor said. Here's what I liked or didn't like about the music, just like we would do about a movie. Or we can say, okay, this church is filling me, but now it's not, and I'm gonna back out, just like we would stop watching a Netflix show. We treat it like it's something to consume, instead of missing the picture that God made the church as something to contribute to. That my hand is here to be connected to this physical body, to help this overall body be healthy. right? This hand is here for the health of the whole body, but the opposite is also true. This hand, part of the body, if it was to not be contributing, it would still be attached, but it would be withered away, and it would be a shell of itself, right? It would atrophy. You see, we were supposed to be and meant to be, and God's design for us to be connected to the church was both for the church to operate healthily and for us to operate healthily. We were meant to be contributors, not consumers. Let's keep reading and continue seeing how they solved it. Verse 5 says, and everyone liked this idea, right? They've seen a problem, conflict. They've rallied as a family. They've divvied up their parts. And then they chose the following. They chose 7 people by those lists of qualifications. And they go on to say in verse 6 that these 7 were presented to the apostles. Okay, here's the people who are going to do it. And they were prayed over. And they laid hands on them, which was a symbol of passing on authority. It was a symbol of passing on belief in. We're going to give this ministry, this responsibility to you, and you're going to be an extension of us. You see here, we see the third thing is that there's structure that supports the family's mission and ensures everyone is cared for. And sometimes we can say that we don't really like organized religion, and I think there's more that people mean by that. But y'all, this is a case for the church to be organized. This is a case for us to be organized so that no one is overlooked, no one is not seen, no one is not cared for. And this is not just a pastor's thing. Caring for the church body is an everyone thing, not just a pastor or a staff person thing. That's what every single one of you do. You make the church feel like the church. When you reach out to someone when they're gone, when you show up and love on them, when they're celebrating, and show up and love on them when they're mourning. It's an everyone thing, caring for one another, but it does take some structure, some organization. That's why I'm so thankful for our small group leaders. If you're a small group leader, you are an extension of our pastoral team. You are an extension of our staff, our coaches and our small group leaders that have metaphorically laid hands on them and prayed over them, that they are an extension of this church. That's how we care for a large church. It's how a large church, we make sure everyone is known. So we see structure here. So we've kind of seen how they've handled it. And we're to our last little verse here, and this is the result. What is the result when the church handles conflict this way? So God's message, it continued to spread. And the number of believers greatly increased in Jerusalem. And many of the Jewish priests were converted too. The Jewish priests that would have been the ones preaching in the synagogues when Jesus came, and they would have been preaching probably against Jesus. I mean, even they were reached. So we look back at this text and we see that there was conflict, which conflict can easily derail. It can easily divide. But instead of derailing and dividing, they leaned in. They treated it as a family issue. And they served one another. When that happened, God's message continued to spread. The word of God spread. That was the result when we serve one another as a united church. That was the result. And as you think about it for a second and you think about why does that happen? Why was that the result? I think it's true that the internal health of this community, the internal health of how we care for one another, it influences our external witness. That how we care for one another, when we're a loving, caring community, it's attractive to the world. That whenever we rally around one another, it's attractive to the war. I think about Damar Hamlin and his injury a little bit ago. And when the world stopped and prayed, multiple denominations of every color, of every voting party, whenever the church rallied and prayed, it actually looked attractive to the world for a minute. But the opposite can also be true, right? Whenever our internal health is not where God designed it to be, it can make the church look a different way to the world. It can corrode our unity and corrode our witness when we go sideways with our frustrations and not up. When we aren't willing to own our mistakes and say we got it wrong, it corrodes our unity and our witness. When we fight over who should be in or out and over minor beliefs, it corrodes our witness. When we treat the church like it's just something we come to once a month or so, we miss out on the needs to love one another and care for one another. It corrodes our witness. And it matters, you guys. It matters how we care for one another in here. Jesus says, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. That is how the world will know. not by saying you're Christian on your Instagram profile, not by where you go to church or where you say you go to church or the tattoo on your arm. That is not how the world will know. It is by how we love one another, how we treat one another as family, and how we serve one another. And this changes how we view the church, doesn't it? It changes it from this perspective of seeing it like a cruise ship where we can all come, we're all experiencing the same thing, but we don't know each other. We can kind of come and go and never get to the person that's right next to you. And it changes it from this cruise ship mentality, and it takes it to this battleship mentality, because we're trying to accomplish something. We exist for a purpose that I may not know everyone on that battleship, but I know my team. I know my team, and I know how it's connected to this team, and I know how it's connected to this team. And so all the teams are working together to one mission, because there is a mission to accomplish, and so it's accomplished by serving one another and working together. We're not a cruise ship. We are a battleship, and we serve one another. And here's the thing. I'm starting to talk about serving, and some of you are starting to get uncomfortable. As soon as the church starts talking about serving or money, people kind of start, whoop. But here's the thing I want you to hear. Serving one another is so much more than a weekly assignment. Serving one another is so much more than weekly filling a hole. It is a lifestyle and the outpouring of a healthy church. I hope that's what you've seen in this text today. It wasn't a weekly assignment. It wasn't what they had to do. It wasn't like if I have time for this, or if this fits in my schedule, or if I'm in the right life stage, or if it's not inconvenient for me, I'll serve. It was the outpouring of a healthy church because they had the mindset, this is my family. They had the closeness to see the needs. And they had the mentality of contribution. What can I do to contribute? If I see a need, it must be mine to contribute to. It was simply the outpouring of a healthy church. Serving is not volunteering. It is embracing your new family at the new mission. And I have to tell you, it is wildly and profoundly more meaningful than just attending church. When you realize that church is not somewhere you go, but it's someone you are, it's a part of you, it's a part of your purpose, it is wildly and profoundly more meaningful. I was reminded of that actually this week because, yes, I work here, but this is my church home. This is my church family, perhaps more importantly. And I started serving again, and I'm serving, leading a Rooted Group leader, not because I have time, I'm trying to get my master's and job and two littles and you know, the thing. But I started serving again, and I came home Tuesday night, and my husband and I stayed up late. We just talked about how fulfilled I was and how excited I was and how many hopes and dreams I had for this group was, because when you are serving, it is just more meaningful than just attending church. And as I talk about this, I hope if you are serving, that's what you've experienced. But in the spirit of authenticity, in the spirit of we're a church full of imperfect people and we don't always get it right, if that's not what you've experienced, please let your leader know, because this is what we want it to feel like, a family mindset, a family mission. And so I want to give us 3 questions to reflect on. And these 3 questions, they are questions you can reflect on whether you have any intention of serving or not. They are questions you can reflect on if it's your very first Sunday, or if you've been here for 2 years and you know God's nudging you to get involved. They're questions you can reflect on if you are in a season of hurt or healing, or if you're in a season where you're ready, or at least you know God's calling you to get moving. Whatever your season, these are 3 questions you can reflect on. In the app, our Preston Trail Sermon Notes app, there are all these 3 questions you can discuss at lunchtime. So I hope you hear these questions are for all of us. Number 1, consider your mindset toward the church. Your mindset. And again, I've preached on some of this and I've talked about this, but this isn't what Allison said. This isn't what the Bible said. I'm asking you to reflect. Where is your heart? Where's your starting point? Are you viewing church as somewhere you go and attend? Or are you viewing church as something you're a part of and a family? And then just reflecting on where did that mentality come from? Is it because of an experience? Is it because of something that happened? And then what would it look like if you embraced God's picture as a body and a family? Consider, reflect your mindset towards the church. Secondly, consider your closeness to your church community. I think of this story and how there's the minority believers, and the minority, they were overlooked because just of some distance. And sometimes distance can mean that we don't see needs. We assume they don't need me. And so distance can cause us to make some assumptions. So consider your closeness. Are you close enough to see the needs? But the opposite is also true. Are you close enough to receive the care? Are you close enough to receive care when life hits the fan and parenting is hard and you lose your job and you lose a loved one? Are you close enough to give and receive care? Everything about church as a body and a family and serving is about community. Consider your closeness. Third question, consider your contributions within your church community. Consider your contributions. Maybe you're serving and you feel filled up and you feel connected to God when you do it, praise God. Maybe you're serving and you don't, and you're like, okay, I gotta reflect. Is this my mentality? Is it time to serve in a different role, to use my giftings better? Or maybe I used to serve, and I wanna reflect on why that is. Or maybe I've never served, and I wanna reflect on why that is. What do I want to contribute? Do I believe I have something to contribute? For some of you, that's the question to consider. Do I believe that I have gifts that matter? I hope that you'll consider those 3 questions. Genuinely be curious within yourself. But for some of you today, for a lot of us today, I pray, it's time for some of us to get serving. It's time for us to get serving, to do our part, to join this beautiful church body on a mission, on a battlefield, right? That's what we're getting to do, to move the needle forward. And so I want to give us a couple places to look as we consider where we might be led to serve. Think about your passions and your skills. Is there something you're good at? People look at you and they're like, oh, like he's good at spreadsheets. Okay, that's a passion and a skill, and you can use it in the church. Would someone look at you and say like, man, they're really good at photography? Okay, that's a passion or a skill. Use it in the church. I was with my small group and someone was saying how singing connects them to God, and I'm like, okay, that's a passion, that's a skill. Use it in the church. Second thing to consider is there a life stage that's been really important to you? Maybe your life was changed as a teenager. My life was changed as a teenager. Maybe you want to go serve and give back in that life stage. Or maybe you know that new mom phase was hard. Our early childhood ministry is trying to put together a way to welcome when new moms have babies, and you want to go serve that population. Or maybe it's young adults or students. Maybe it's a specific ministry that's helped you. You're like, I've seen my marriage saved at Preston Trail. I want to give back there. I've seen my finances saved at Preston Trail. I want to give back there. Is there a ministry spot? Or maybe it's you walked in the atrium on your first Sunday and you felt welcomed. I want to give back there and make sure everyone else feels welcomed. Is there a ministry that has helped you? Are there some needs? And some of you are like, Allison, just tell me the needs. One of my best friends is at Enneagram 3, and she's like, just tell me where you need me. So we circled all of our team members together this week, our staff together, and I asked them, what are your needs? And if I were to share with you the entire list they gave me, we would be here a while. But I have picked 5. I have picked 5 that I prayed through and decided to share with you guys today. 5 needs. We are actively praying for stage managers, for people to work behind the scenes and to keep us organized, to make sure I make my cue time, to make sure Warren and the band make their cue time. People who are organized, maybe a little bossy, they like to keep things moving. Stage managers, we need you. We're praying for couples leaders. We have had to turn away couples the last multiple semesters because we've not had enough couples leaders. It's a hard season to lead in, but we need you, couples leaders. 9th grade guys leaders, kindergarten leaders. If your life was changed in kids or student ministry and you want to go be a part of 9th grade or kindergarten or pre-K, we need you. Parking team, we need people in the parking lot. I literally know a story of a family who pulled in the parking lot and they drove away because they were so overwhelmed by their prior experience of church and they didn't come in the doors. Parking team members, your smile, your wave, your welcome, it matters. And we need some parking team members. Those are 5 needs we have. The last one are some gaps. If you see a gap in our church, I'd love to invite you to help meet it. That's kind of what happened in this text today. There was a gap and they met it. So if you see a gap, maybe it's yours to meet. But here's the thing. I'm talking about serving and I don't want you to miss the point. I don't want you to miss this. Please listen here. Serving is not about meeting needs or filling holes. It is about our individual growth and our collective witness. It is symbiotic. It is both giving and receiving. It is both community and contribution. It goes both ways. And as I was thinking about people who have lived this out, who have grown closer to God, and who have also made our body look more beautiful, I thought of Nick and Erin Milligan. And so I wanted them to share their story with you guys today. So take a look at this story.
The amazing thing about this church is they have so many different areas that you can serve. It's like, I've talked to people where it's like, well, I serve on the golf cart team. And it's like, Well, guys, you're getting people to the door. Sometimes that is the hardest part, is getting them to come in the door. Yep. And then the welcome team who actually like smiles with them and makes those people who have never come to church before or have been burned by church, like want to come back because this is the first time they've ever been like felt that way. I mean, or people in early childhood who these people have never dropped their babies off before. I mean, I could go on and on about why every single part of the ministries that we have here at church are important, but they really are.
One Saturday, she's like, hey, how much do you love me? And I'd love for you to help me out on Saturday night to do the third grade boys, right? Mm-hmm. And at first, very apprehensive about that, because little kids scare me. But yeah, it was a great experience. You know, you get to stay in touch with them and see how your time that you've given affects the next generation and the kids coming up behind you. And also very cool to see us get to serve and experience in the same capacity. Getting to play music in church, as some of you get to see, it's a joy. I may not smile all the time, but I'm really happy, I promise. It's internal happiness.
I know when I was growing up, I did not pick out the drummer like, wow, that drummer was really good. Like, I need to go tell him. But when people come up and just say things like that, it tells me that he's influencing like our church with like just by glorifying God and using his gifts that God has given him. Last semester, I literally had a conversation with Nick, I'm not even kidding, the week before we got our next ask. And I told him, I said, babe, I don't care what we're doing, but we're doing something together. So you can choose what it is, but we're doing something. And I'm not even kidding, a week later, they asked us if we would be Rooted facilitators.
It was just an overall great experience, I think. And now we have even more friends. Yeah. And I think it's funny because I didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to do it.
You mean you don't like being vulnerable to strangers that you've never met before?
Yeah, no, it's not really my thing.
We had all sorts of different people in their faith journey. We had people that had, been in church their whole lives. We had people that had stepped away from the faith and had come back. And we had people just starting in their faith. And I think one of the most beautiful things was, at the end of it all, Nick got to baptize one of our group members.
To be asked, I think, was really one of the greatest honors I've ever had. When someone thinks of you enough to say, hey, I want you to be a part of this. And also seeing that what I'm doing is making a difference. What we're doing is making a huge difference.
We're being the hands and feet of Jesus so that these people can build an authentic faith, a faith that's theirs, helping them feel safe when they come in and welcomed. And you can do that in any capacity.
Absolutely.
I love their honesty, right? And I love their joy. You could see it. It was like I smiled watching it this week. I smiled watching it in Run Through. I smiled watching it right there because they just have this joy. And I have known this couple for more than 10 years, and the joy didn't come because they've had a perfect church experience. Like, they've experienced hurt. They've been around here long enough. It didn't come because they felt qualified every single time. Aaron didn't feel qualified to teach kids curriculum the first time I asked, like 8 years ago. Right? It didn't come because they felt qualified or had a perfect experience or had all this time. They have a 2-year-old. The joy came because they found their church family. And they knew what it meant to be a family. And they kept on being that family. And they kept on finding and figuring out how to be a family because it takes continual pursuit. And the result was joy. Joy as they grew closer to Christ. Joy as they grew closer to one another, to community. And joy that they got to contribute and be a part of seeing people say yes to Jesus Christ. So the most important yes people will ever give. They've gotten to be a part of that. As Nick drums, as Aaron serves in Trail Kids, as they lead Rooted. There has been joy that's the byproduct of seeing God use their small offering of time and talent and turning it into more than they could ever imagine. And it's a joy I wouldn't want you to miss out on. And so I want to give us an opportunity today that if you are feeling led to serve the body, to say yes, to lean into this family mindset, there's a link on the screen, and I want to give you time right now to do that. We're going to pause for just like 45 seconds. And for those of you that feel led, you can go to prestontrella.org/serve. There's 2 buttons. I'm ready to get plugged in right away, or sign up for the Serve Tour, which is coming up later this month. If you're not sure where and you want to go on a tour, see behind the scenes, see all the different serve roles, talk to staff members about it, those are 2 different ways that you can do that. So I'm going to give you 45 seconds to respond. Pull out your phone in church and respond right there, and think about your mindset, your closeness, and your contribution. So take a minute to do that. Saw some of you were praying, some of you were talking with your spouse or your friend. I love that. And I want to end us in a time of prayer because there are some of you who have been serving this church. We've been around for 20 years, and some of you have been serving for a year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years. So if you've been serving at this church, would you right now please stand? If you are currently serving in kids, students, adults, as a group leader, coffee, band, wherever you are serving, would you please stand? Stay standing. I see you sitting down trying to get out of the spotlight. Okay, we're going to pray over you. And this is a whole church prayer, online, in the room. Would you help me pray over these people? Don't think about your next step right now. Don't get distracted by what God's calling you to do. Right now, we're praying for our brothers and sisters in Christ. So for those that are standing, if you know them, you can grab them, put a hand on them. If you don't know them, maybe don't grab them. But if you know them, give them a little love. Let's pray over these people that are serving right now. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for these people who have said yes, who wake up early, who figure out how to wrangle their kids early and leave their kids multiple services, and they figure it all out, Lord, for the sake of saying yes to your mission. And so, God, I thank you. Lord, I pray that they feel connected to you while they serve. God, I pray that they get to see the fruit of their labor. God, I pray for their ability to get to know you better while they serve, for their connection and community while they serve. And Father, I just pray that you would keep on spurring their heart to serve. Teach us to serve, God, even though those that are already serving. Draw our hearts to you. May we encounter you and experience you as we serve. We pray for your favor and your blessing over these brothers and sisters of Christ. Amen.